I know this has become a cliche, but it really is starting to look like we're in Orwell's 1984. I mean, how else do you explain this from Forbes? Quote, the US government is secretly ordering Google to provide data on anyone typing in certain search terms, an accidentally unsealed court document shows. There are fears that such keyword warrants threaten to implicate innocent web users in serious crimes and are more common than previously thought. The article details an incident where federal investigators in Wisconsin were tracking men they thought had trafficked and abused a girl. To locate the men, the feds requested Google give them any information about anyone who'd searched for the girl's name, her mother's name, and the girl's address. They requested this in 2019, and Google provided them with the accounts and IP addresses in mid-2020. The court document apparently didn't say how many people's data had been handed over to the government. The feds did this under what's called a keyword warrant. As the article says, quote, search term orders are effectively phishing expeditions, hoping to ensnare possible suspects whose identities the government does not know. It's not dissimilar to so-called geofence warrants, where investigators ask Google to provide information on anyone within the location of a crime scene at a given time. You can already see why this is so dangerous. It's a complete violation of the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. When you're literally just looking to look, that's as unreasonable as it gets. But the situation is much worse because according to Forbes, the feds usually have a specific Google account they want to investigate and prove it's linked to a crime. In other words, there's no reason to request the warrant. It would appear the feds just want to spy on people. Now, everybody jokes about the feds spying on them, but it's one thing to joke about it. It's another when they're actually doing it and using companies who have access to a lot of our data to do it. And I just love Google's response. You already know it's going to be bullshit, but this one has a particular oh dear that must be smelled. The Google Patsy says, quote, as with all law enforcement requests, we have a rigorous process that is designed to protect our users while supporting the important work of law enforcement. Stop lying. No one believes you. No one. You don't even believe you. They're just handing your data over to the government without batting an eye, and then they're like, oh, we really care about your privacy. This is why you shouldn't trust the government or corporations, and especially not when they work together. That's why I'm recommending today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. Just kidding, but this would be the perfect place to do that. If ever there was a reason to use a VPN, this is the one. In all seriousness, I do use ExpressVPN precisely because of shit like this. I know Google and Microsoft and Yahoo track whatever you search. I know Comcast tracks my searches as well. I don't want my information, be it a credit card number, my social security number, my passwords, or my internet traffic being monitored, shared, or sold. I can't prevent all of that, but using a VPN will limit a good deal of it. So if you don't have a VPN, I suggest you get one and check to make sure they haven't had any data breaches. I'm looking at you, Nord. And put it on your computer and your phone because that thing's tracking you too, and it's got the added element of geolocation. So they don't just know what you do, they know where you go. A major reason you should be concerned about this is because the government doesn't want you to know that they've been spying on you. The article says that the feds in Wisconsin figured that the scope of the warrant would have limited the chances of snagging innocent people, and that might be true in this case. It may not be true for other cases. The question then is, what other terms are the feds searching for, and what other tracking data are they requesting? That's not clear because all this is done in secret. Forbes only found out about the Wisconsin case because it was accidentally unsealed by the Justice Department. They sealed it again, but not before Forbes got the chance to review it. Forbes also discovered another case from December 2020, but it was only noted in the court docket. They didn't have the actual filings. The point is that we weren't meant to know the feds were doing this, and the most obvious reason they wouldn't tell us is that people would object to these kinds of searches. Who's signing off on these warrants? I would assume it would be a judge, in which case they would have to know this is skirting up against the Fourth Amendment. It's so unethical and probably unconstitutional, you have to wonder about the people thinking this is a good idea, especially when you consider how this played out in the Wisconsin case. Quote, the government had published the kidnapping victim's name, her Facebook profile, now no longer accessible, her phone number and address, a potential breach of the minor's privacy. The government has now sealed the document, though was only alerted to the leak after Forbes emailed the Justice Department for comment. That mistake of revealing the identity of minor victims of sexual abuse in court documents has become a common one in recent years. As in the latest case, the FBI and the DHS have been seen choosing pseudonyms and acronyms for victims, but then publishing their Facebook profile link, which contains the name of the minor. So you're not even protecting the identities of the victims in your cases. Even the media gets that right. When the same people who called high school boys white supremacists for standing and smiling at Native Americans have better ethics, there's a problem. It sounds like you don't care about these victims, and that you're just using them to get power to spy on people, and broadly too. According to an update in the article, quote, the orders appear even broader, asking for IP addresses and Google account information for individuals who search for various addresses and some terms associated with bomb making, such as low explosives and pipe bomb. Similar orders were served on Microsoft and Yahoo for their respective search engines. Again, this is why you don't trust corporations, why you don't give the government unlimited unchecked power, and why you never let these two groups work together. You know they're looking at other search results, tracking all sorts of things, and most of what people search for probably isn't against the law. You're allowed to look up things about explosives. Imagine someone writing a story and they want to get the information right. Imagine someone's researching the history of terrorism and they're trying to track down the types of bombs used. Imagine someone hears about a case in their area, maybe knows the victim, and so looks up the person's name. Imagine there's more than one person with the same name. It's possible the feds are factoring that in, but it's also possible, and more likely, that they're not. Either way, this is very suspect, and just another example of why you shouldn't trust these people with all your information, or assume they're going to respect your rights. This comes back to money, power, and control, and this is a perfect example of what happens when no one is accountable for anything they do. The government and these mega corporations will screw you without a second thought and then make you apologize for being a bad lay. But what do I know? I'm just some guy. Oh, and Mr. Fedman, tight bottom end is also a musical term for when you want to control the low end frequencies of your guitar tone. It's perfectly normal.